Occupiers pull out of protest site outside the CE's office. Police use pepper spray against protesters in Mongkok. And secondary schools in Wan Chai Central and Western districts to resume class tomorrow.
Good evening. Student protesters outside the chief executive's office have begun pulling out of the area tonight. It's some progress in the tense standoff, but many are still surrounding the central government offices. This comes as the government sends stern warnings that civil servants must be allowed to return to work tomorrow. Police officers began removing barricades protesters had set up along the road outside the chief executive's office early this evening. After negotiations with the police, the two sides came to some agreements, which included the retreat of the ralliers back to the occupied zone on nearby Harcourt Road. But with no representative body leading the way, there were some who refused to leave. This comes after stern warnings from the authorities and desperate calls from influential figures in the city for the area outside the CE's office and government headquarters to be cleared. Today, the police also sounded stronger than before in their tone when talking about restoring public order.
In order to restore the public order, we are determined and we are confident. We have the capability to take any necessary action.
Earlier in the day, the government released a statement saying the door to dialogue is always open. But it asked that the Federation of Students and relevant organizations assist in two areas: the reopening of access to the government headquarters to allow some 3,000 government staff to return to work tomorrow, and the reopening of roads in Admiralty to allow schools in Wan Chai and the central and western districts to resume classes. Former Secretary for Security Regina Ip, who's also an executive council member and lawmaker, called on the student protesters to end their street rallies. Today, she underlined the chief executive's need to put his foot down.
Enough is enough, where government headquarters is concerned. Government must ensure access for the civil servants and make sure the government machinery can, reactivate, So I think he will have to take some enforcement action. And I really hope the students will protect themselves by returning home, going home or returning to the campus. After all, they made their point.
But the Federation of Students said it's not time to leave yet.
We believe it's not the right time to end the movement, because the movement is to aim at an authentic democratic reform, and only by having achievement, then the government could really, or we could really persuade we could retreat. But right now you could see there's no any progress or any achievement gained. So it is impossible to persuade those who pursue for democracy to stop pursuing.
More clashes broke out in Mongkok in the early hours of the day. Police used pepper spray on multiple occasions to control the crowd. Owen Fung has more.
One of the more serious conflicts broke out at around 4 a.m. on Argyle Street. It started with quarrels between people in the crowd, and some of them then got into an argument with police officers. During the confrontation, a policeman was hit by someone with a stone. The police eventually managed to prevent the protesters from getting close to the junction of Argyle and Shanghai streets. The atmosphere was tense as the police warned the protesters not to cross behind the defense line. Some journalists were also temporarily dragged away from the cordoned-off area. Earlier on, there was another scuffle between police and protesters on the section of Argyle Street near Sayong Choi Street. Some in the crowd intervened when police tried to arrest protesters on suspicion of assaulting officers. 2 people were eventually taken away by the police. And at around 1 a.m., police used pepper spray against protesters who were approaching the gate at the car park entrance of the Mongkok police station. This man who was pepper sprayed said the protesters went to the police station after they heard that the police was about to release an agitator. Conflicts caused by protesters questioning the impartiality of the police occurred throughout the night. The police said due to the violent behaviors from both Occupy movement supporters and their opponents, it was difficult for them to maintain public order and safety.
I strongly appeal to the public for staying calm and complying with the law. Do not provoke the police and cause further chaos.
The police said there were 6 conflicts in Mongkok this morning, and 30 people have been arrested over the past few days for offences including fighting in public places and unlawful assembly. Owen Fung, TVB News.
A group of protesters in Mongkok have now also decided to leave the area and join the core rally in Admiralty. This as occasional clashes continued in the Kowloon Occupy zone throughout the day. Rani Samtani reports.
These protesters in Mongkok announced this evening they would retreat from the area. They said they have decided to support those in Admiralty to continue the fight for genuine democracy. Saying that they had been deliberating on this for a few days, they stressed they are not leaving out of cowardice, but that they did not want to see more people suffer in bloody scenes. Speaking to the media, some emotionally, they cited serious mistrust in the police after what they saw as lenient action towards people who assaulted protesters in the area. The crowd swelled in the afternoon at the junction of Nathan Road and Argyle Street. Occasional quarrels erupted between demonstrators and those against the Occupy movement. "You have occupied this place for so many days already. Isn't it enough?" questioned this resident. Police at the scene immediately intervened and removed people instigating the clashes. At one point, a man tried to pull down canopies set up by the demonstrators. Officers rushed to the area and escorted the man out of the protest zone. Local residents and business owners have urged the demonstrators to leave so that the roads can be reopened to traffic. Local vendors say they have lost a lot of business in the past week, and nearby residents have complained about the noise disturbance as the demonstrators chant slogans throughout the day and night. Lawmaker Albert Chan called on the demonstrators to stand their ground for as long as possible.
If Mongkok is going to be dispersed, and then I believe Admiralty, will be finished, also quickly. But I do believe this short-time inconvenience is worthwhile because we are fighting for the benefit of Hong Kong.
Some demonstrators said they would stay put.
Well, it's true that some people disagree with us, but I think it's for the bigger cause. We've tried different approaches. We've tried talking to the government, voting, but they just ignore it. So I think this is maybe the last method that we can think of.
Occupy Central organizers announced online this evening that its supporters had agreed to leave Mongkok and Lungwo Road outside the CE's office to join the occupation in Admiralty. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
Classes at secondary schools in the Wan Chai and Central and Western districts will resume tomorrow. While schools may slowly return to normal, those in the transport sector says their business continues to be disrupted by the ongoing protests. Here's Owen Fong again.
The Education Bureau announced classes for secondary schools in the Wan Chai and Central and Western districts will resume tomorrow.
We'll closely monitor the arrangement tomorrow for class resumption for secondary schools, and then we'll then consider the class resumption arrangement for primary schools, kindergartens. And if the situation allows, we would like all other affected schools to resume class too as soon as possible.
While classes at primary schools, kindergartens and special schools in the affected districts will remain suspended, Wong advised them to remain open to allow students who might otherwise be left alone at home to stay at the school. The police say there might still be disruptions to school bus services and they may have to use alternative routes.
I will appeal to them to have sufficient traveling time so that the students can arrive school on time, and also the school authorities can appreciate, just in case if the students can't make it, they they note this is something that beyond our control.
Meanwhile, a number of organizations from the transport sector held a demonstration today. Drivers of different vehicles, including taxis, minibuses and trucks, drove slowly from the Kwaichung container port to West Kowloon to voice their dissatisfaction with the disruptions brought about by the Occupy protests. The organizers say business for the transport sector has decreased by 20 to 30% as a result of the protests. They added that while they respect the protesters' right to express their views, it is unreasonable for them to block roads, causing great inconvenience to the general public. Owen Fung, TVB News.
And still ahead in our newscast tonight, a typhoon sweeps past southwestern Japan. A top North Korean official denies Kim Jong-un is ill. And the world's first museum of microorganisms.